it's his sexual awakening, and I think that it was a very scary moment for him as well. It was thrilling and enthralling and arousing, but also like deeply anxiety inducing and shameful. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So this is my last video of 2025, which really isn't saying much because 2025 is over in like 5 days. But I just really wanted to express my gratitude for all of you for being here. I think just for some context, I was looking back in my notes app to see, when did I hit 100 subscribers? And I only hit it in August of this year. It truly never gets old thinking about the community that I've built, that we've built, of just people that are obsessed with romance. I think that my Christmas gift was truly each and every one of you, and I'm just so unbelievably grateful that you guys are all here. The last time I was in my bed was for the Summer I Turned Pretty season finale, and I had a similar speech then about how grateful I was then, and the offer still stands. I think that if you found this channel through the Summer I Turned Pretty, I'm so glad you're here. If you found this channel through Heated Rivalry, I'm so glad you're here. I just love romance. I think I've been hardwired to love romance, and going into 2026, it is such a big year for romance. So much stuff is coming out. Bridgerton, People We Meet on Vacation, maybe Heated Rivalry season 2, except they say that it's not coming out until 2027, but regardless, it's a big year for romance in 2026. So thank you guys all so much for being here. I hope that you guys have had the happiest of holidays, and let's just get into today's video. Heated Rivalry season finale. Guys, I'm sick. When I finished it, I felt empty. I felt empty after I finished the Summer I Turned Pretty season finale, and I felt empty after watching the Heated Rivalry season finale. And honestly, coming up with something to talk about was crazy enough kind of difficult, just because it's hard for me to analyze what is essentially just two people in love for 1 hour straight. Obviously, there were many emotional beats throughout the episode. We learn more about Ilya's mother. They get discovered by Shane's parents. Like, things happen in the episode, but at its core, this episode was very dreamy. It was very romantic. And I mean, I love it. I live for it. I've already seen it, the whole episode, 3 times already. But when thinking about what I wanted to give to you guys, what I wanted to analyze to you guys, I think I just wanted to analyze the growth of these two characters, of their love. Keep in mind, I had no idea this show was being made. The difference between this show and the Summer I Turned Pretty is by the time I was sitting down to analyze the Summer I Turned Pretty season 3, I had been an avid fan of the show for like 3 years up until that point. So I had 3 years essentially of context leading up into season 3. Whereas for this, I had never read the books. I had no clue that this show was being made. All I had was that edit that I saw on TikTok that made me want to lock in and watch the show. And if I knew that, I would have never predicted that the show was going to end the way that the show started. Who Ilya and Shane are in the very first episode are like completely different people than who they are in the finale. Who they are to each other in the first episode is completely different than who they are to each other in the finale. So today, what I'm going to do for you guys is analyze a scene from season 1, and then I'm going to analyze a scene from the finale and kind of compare and contrast how much they've grown. So as always, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into it. The first scene that I want to analyze from episode 1 is the steamy shower scene. And I think that upon rewatching this scene, I think it's actually sadder and more nuanced than people give it credit for. I think because this was in the first episode, and I think in the first episode, a lot of the general public who had no idea of the show or the book were kind of gobsmacked by the aggressive sexuality that's displayed in the first episode. And so I think that this scene just kind of goes along with the rest of it, of just another like aggressively explicit sexual scene But rewatching it to take these notes actually left me feeling very sad for Shane and very impressed with Hudson Williams' performance. This is the scene where Ilya and Shane, they're both naked in the shower together, and Ilya starts masturbating in front of Shane. So at this point, Ilya is already aware of Shane's attraction to him. I know that in the books, because at this point I've read Heated Rivalry and The Long Game, so I have all the context. In the books, Ilya describes that he's always been super good at knowing when somebody's attracted to him, and at this point he's very aware of Shane's attraction to him. And in this scene, Ilya takes on a more dominant, pursuing role, really coaxing Shane into his own sexuality, which is going to be essentially flipped when we get to the scene that I'm analyzing from the finale, but that's just laying the scene for you. And furthering that point of just how Ilya is so in control in this scene is like in this scene, it's very apparent that Shane wants it and he wants it bad, but he's so scared and so repressed, and Ilya is so good at clocking that and doing things and making decisions that allows Shane to feel more comfortable. In this scene, Shane is in the shower washing his hair, and this is when Ilya walks in and Ilya starts checking Shane out. And this is where the music comes in. And this music is so anxiety inducing. I almost put in my notes that this music is giving horror movie. I decided against it because I don't want to make it seem like this is like scary or anything, but I think that this scene is very anxiety inducing for Shane. And I know that this music choice was purposeful, because think of the music choices in all the other sex scenes in the show. Think of the music choice when they have penetrative sex for the first time. Think of how romantic and soft and gentle that song is compared to this song, or score, which is just very scandalous. It's very, it just gives me anxiety listening to it. And I think that's supposed to represent Shane's brain and what's going on in his head, because at this point he's just so confused and repressed and shameful. I think that this whole scene, the music really matches what's going on in Shane's head.
You still want? Still want?
Hudson Williams really, really deserves an Emmy for his facial expressions in this scene. Like I said, they actually make me so much sadder upon rewatch than on the first time. I think on the first time I was just so shocked at everything that was happening. I wasn't able to clock the emotional nuances of this scene. But Shane's face here makes me so sad. It makes me so sad. Like, he's wearing all of his emotions on his face in the most candid way. Like, you can see the shame, the fear, the arousal, the anxiety, the yearning, the longing. Like, it's all there on his face. And every single time I rewatched this scene or I watched it to take these notes, I just like feel every single emotion that Shane is feeling in this moment. And I just want to like reach through the screen and like give him a hug. Leaning into all of these emotions that Shane is feeling at this moment, the shame and the fear and all of that, I think Ilya at this point in the story is like a walking embodiment of his repressed sexuality. Imagine you have this part of yourself, this piece of yourself that maybe you know about yourself, maybe you don't, but regardless, you've pushed it so far down, you've pushed it so far to the back of your brain, and then Ilya Rozanov walks in, who's pretty much like sex personified, and literally gives you no choice but to like confront everything that you wanted to like bury and run away from in your life. And I think that this scene, coupled with the fact that this is one of the first scenes that is shown when Shane comes out to Rose and he's crying in that scene, and she asks if he's ever been with a guy, and we cut to this scene of Ilya masturbating in front of Shane.
Ever been with another guy?
And I think I saw somebody online that was like, that scene is so emotional, I can't take it seriously with the hard cut of Ilya masturbating in the shower. But I actually think that this particular scene was purposeful because I think this scene was Shane's sexual awakening. It's his sexual awakening, and I think that it was a very scary moment for him as well. It was thrilling and enthralling and arousing, but also like deeply anxiety inducing and shameful. And I think that this scene, like I said, is just really truly sadder than any of us give it credit for. Ilya and Shane keep stealing glances at each other, and Shane gets hard, and this is when Ilya notices. That's where the eyebrow raise is for it. He clocks that Shane is hard, and then he gives him an eyebrow raise, and Shane gets really embarrassed at this, and he says fuck off. And then this is when Ilya starts masturbating in front of him. And if we're leaning into sex as communication, I think what Ilya's communicating to Shane in this scene is that he's safe, which is like really funny objectively to say that like this is a safe space when they're both naked and Ilya's masturbating. But literally I do think that that's what Ilya is trying to communicate. He can see how stressed out Shane is. It's all over his face. It's, you know, all in his body language. And I think that Ilya is trying to make Shane feel comfortable to explore that part of himself with Ilya. And I think it's also a way of saying like, you're hard, I know you're embarrassed, but like, look, like I'm affected by this too. Like the feeling is mutual. So all in all, it's just a way really to calm Shane's anxieties. And I also think that that's so powerful because as the story goes on, I think that that becomes their dynamic of just Shane being really high strung and anxiety ridden and uptight, and Ilya being there to ground him and to, you know, let him know that it's okay and that there's no need to worry. And Ilya is like that at like many points in the story. Like as I'm talking, I'm thinking out loud. I'm thinking about the first time that they had sex and how gentle and tender he was. I think that scene has been running in my brain all day, especially now that I've watched the finale and I can see how gentle of a lover Ilya is and how he puts up this tough exterior and this cockiness and, you know, macho vibe, but he's really just the softest lover boy ever to exist. And when I think about him and Shane's first time and how gentle he was, both in the book and in the TV show, I think that that aspect of Ilya has always been there, and I think that we can see the beginning of that in this scene, in this moment. So yeah, during this whole scene, Shane looks stressed. He looks literally sick to his stomach, and it makes me feel almost bad for him. And again, it makes my heart hurt, you know, and he clearly wants to. I think that's why his gaze lingers on Ilya doing this for so long. It's almost like he's in a daze of just like, this is so hot, I'm so turned on, but I can't be doing this and I can't be feeling this way. And then not here. He snaps out of it, and that's when he says not here, implying that he does want it, just not in this scene at this exact moment. So yeah, Shane is clearly waiting for Ilya. That's why he leaves a shoe out to look busy, but then he but he's clearly flustered, so he drops it. And so then Shane says, we can forget what happened in there, okay? And Ilya goes, is that what you want? And Shane says, yeah, for sure. Extremely unconvincing. He's always been a bad liar. And then Ilya laughs and says, wow, you really are a bad liar. And so then Ilya walks over, and again, I love the blocking of this scene about how Shane is sitting down and Ilya's hovering over him, kind of showing how much control Ilya has at this moment in time. He's completely in control of the situation. Shane is too terrified to do anything about how he feels, so Ilya has no choice but to kind of take the reins of this connection. And so Ilya says, what is your room number? And then Shane says 1410, incredibly fast. And Ilya says, well, if I come to 1410 tonight at 9 o'clock, Shane says, I might open. Ilya says, I might knock. And so what I really noticed in this scene and comparing to the season finale and this scene I'm about to unpack is that there's just no vulnerability from Ilya at this point. Like at this point, this is the Ilya that we all met like a month ago, especially for the ones of us that didn't meet the book. And he is literally, like I said, he's sex personified. He's arrogant. He's cocky. He's confident. He's all of that stuff. And I think that's the Ilya we see in this scene. And I think it's just so interesting to see over the course of this show how much of that is a facade, how much of that is an act because of everything he's gone through in his life, both with his dad and his mom. And he's learned to have that, tough exterior as almost a defense mechanism. And I think that in this scene, you know, we see it on full display, and we can't really see the true lover boy that's like itching to come out of him in this moment. But that's really what I took away from this shower scene. And whereas I feel like Shane is so vulnerable in this moment, I think that, you know, whereas Ilya is very comfortable in his sexuality at this point, very comfortable in his bisexuality, Shane, he doesn't know what he is. He doesn't know if he likes men, women, whatever. All he knows is that he wants Ilya, and that is really scary. This dynamic at this point is just Ilya leading and then Shane carefully following, which completely gets twisted on its head in the finale, in this scene that I'm about to unpack for you to compare and contrast. So the scene that I wanted to compare it to was the I love you scene in the season finale. And whereas in the first episode, in the scene that I just unpacked, it's, you know, Ilya in charge, Ilya leading, and then Shane following. I think at this point, Ilya's completely succumbed to his feelings for Shane, and I actually think that Shane is in charge and Shane is leading, and it's really powerful, magical to see this full circle moment, this almost mirrored scene of season 1 come to fruition in this moment.
I love you.
Shane wakes up Ilya in the middle of the night with his life plan. So this is coming right after Ilya's talking about ways he can stay in Canada, ways he can avoid going back to Russia. He implies maybe getting married to Rose. Shane hates that idea. He's like, please don't do that ever. And so Shane comes up with this whole plan. He decides that Ilya's going to play for Ottawa. They'll be 2 hours apart. They're going to start a charity. You know, they're going to tell the press that they're friends. And then Ilya can become a Canadian citizen. And when they retire, they can be together. And so we can see that Shane has planned out the rest of their lives. He has taken control of their life, of their connection. And Ilya is clearly touched by it. Ilya says, do you really think that far ahead? And that line reminded me so much of Thinking About You by Frank Ocean. You know, the chorus where it's like, do you ever think that far ahead? Because I've been thinking about forever. And that whole song honestly reminds me of Shane and Ilya, just like the whole lyrics and like even the bridge when it's like, you know, I remember, how can I forget? You were my first time. And like Ilya was Shane's first time and they're each other's first loves. It's just very topical to their love story. And even like in this moment when Ilya's like, do you think that far ahead? And I was thinking about Frank Ocean, I've been thinking about forever. In the books at this moment, or not in this moment, but at the cottage scene, Shane describes how like he's already ready for forever. Like, you think that far ahead, Shane has already thought about forever. So I'm going to read this for you. Mine. Ilya's breath tickled Shane's skin when he spoke the single word. Yours, Shane said dreamily. All of this for 2 weeks is mine. Forever, Shane wanted to say. Forever, if you ask. He knew it was impossible, but in that moment, he would do anything to make it work. There had to be a solution to their problem. So then, responding to Ilya's question, do you think that far ahead? Shane says, I do, about this. Ilya says, is that what you want, to be together? And guys, this is the same question from that scene. When I first watched this scene in the episode and Ilya said, is that what you want? I'm like, whoa, what a full circle moment. And even just like the context of it, I think really shows Ilya's character growth, because when Ilya's asking, is that what you want? In that very first scene, it, like I said, is very cocky. It's very arrogant. You know, Shane's all flustered and Ilya's living for it. And he's, you know, Shane's like, let's just forget what happened back there. And Ilya's like, is that what you want? Is that really what you want? Like, that's the vibe of how he's saying it. You know, no vulnerability, just pure confidence. Whereas in this moment, his heart is like on his sleeve. He's like, is that really what you want? Like, you really want to be with me forever? Like, you've really chosen me? And it's just so beautiful to see how vulnerable he's being in this moment.
Look, we can forget that happened in there, okay?
Is what you want?
Yeah, for sure.
And is that what you want? To be together?
So much. So much it scares me.
Shane says so much it scares me. And whereas in that first scene, he tells pretty much a complete lie where he's like, yeah, sure. Like, yeah, like I just want to forget everything that happened in here. For him to say so much it scares me, just complete and utter truth and vulnerability. And like, I'm literally like, I'm gonna tear up just thinking about it, because it's just so beautiful to see how much they've both come to terms with just everything, with their sexuality, with their love, how they're at a spot where they can be completely open, honest, and comfortable with one another. And like, we've truly come so far from episode 1. I don't know how we did it in the span of a week, but like, I'm just so moved by this story. And Ilya cries, just like how I'm starting to cry right now. I've noticed that when Ilya cries, he always turns his head away, like almost like he's been hardwired to think that crying is something to be shameful of. He does that in episode 5 when he cries, talking about his home life, and he does this now. And again, it makes you want to reach through the screen and just like give Ilya a hug, because I think everything that's happened in his life has made him allergic to emotions and feelings. Having his dad, who was extremely abusive and emotionally unavailable, and his mom, who was battling depression but kept it all bottled up inside. I think that Ilya's learned to feel nothing, even though he feels everything. He feels everything, because I read The Long Game, and literally the therapist says to him, you feel everything so deeply. And the thing is that's just always been Ilya. So when we have these moments where like his true self comes out, where he's able to cry and be open, it tugs at your heartstrings in the most intense, best way possible. Shane grounds him and pulls him in for a kiss, and Ilya starts saying I love you in Russian, and whew, guys, my romantic heart started screaming. It started screaming when he started saying I love you in Russian. And then Ilya says I love you while crying. And you guys know I love a love confession where tears are flowing. To me, like, it just like, it speaks to how deeply I feel things. Like when I love, like I pretty much want to start crying. So whenever there's a love confession in TV where people are crying, I'm always just so moved by it.
I love you. Holy shit. I mean, I love you too. Oh my god, I love you so much.
Shane says, holy shit. And so then Ilya tries to take it back because he's, worried about Shane's reaction. And then instantly Shane says, I love you too, back to ground him. And Ilya says, fuck Hollander. And his voice break here kills me. It's like pretending that he didn't love him to the extent that he loved him has been like killing him this entire time. And now there's just like a weight off of his shoulders where he doesn't have to pretend anymore. He doesn't have to pretend that he doesn't feel anything. He's allowed to like be himself. Shane says, oh my god, I love you so much. And tears, literally tears. Love is alive, guys. And so then Shane says, does it fucking kill you too? And Ilya says, not anymore. And I love that mutual acknowledgement that they've both been down so bad for years. They've both been down bad for years. And then skipping ahead, Shane and Ilya have sex for the first time after confessing their love to each other. And I think that what's beautiful about this scene and leaning back into sex as communication is that, reading the books, I've been really able to understand Ilya's relationship to sex and his very complicated relationship to sex, and how Ilya's hypersexuality really comes as a coping mechanism from everything that he's dealt with in his life. His mother died when he was 12. He started being sexually active when he was 14. Up until the point where he met Shane. I mean, during their situationship, he, had heavy promiscuous energy, and all of it truly was just a coping mechanism. And whereas I guess for Shane, I think, sex has always been like a deeply intimate, loving, passionate thing for him, especially having Ilya Rozanov as a lover, because even though his hypersexuality is a defense, Ilya's always been a really tender and caring lover to Shane in the bedroom. But alas, I say this for Ilya, sex has never really been an expression of love or romance. And I think in this scene, this is the very first time where like it's just so raw and passionate and tender. And I think it's like a turning point for Ilya in his life where he no longer has to use sex as a coping mechanism. He can engage in healthy, loving, intimate relationships. And I think it's you know, opening the door to his path to healing. I mean, there's a long road ahead. If you've read The Long Game, you know the long road ahead, but it really just like brings tears to my eyes just to see how much he's changed and to see how open his heart is to love at this point. So that is all I have for you guys today. Again, I couldn't be more grateful for you guys. I couldn't be more grateful for this channel. There's just so much fun stuff happening in the world and on this channel in the year 2026. As you guys know, I'm moving to the city, and so I'm just really excited about that change too. Yeah, I hope you guys had the most wonderfulest, awesomest Christmas, holidays, whatever you celebrate. You know, please comment down below what you want to see from me in the new year. Any rom-coms, any romances, any pieces of romance media you want to see me talk about in this new year, please let me know. I love you guys all so much. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video.
How's your father?
You speak Russian now.
I know the word for father.